Warning: the content of these videos contains adult themes which may be distressing. Viewer discretion is advised. No apparent motives, no viable suspects, no timely arrests and no answers. Someone's son, daughter, sister, brother and friend, gone but never forgotten. Putting cold cases back in the warmth of the spotlight. Mystery Maverick presents The Unforgotten. Hello everyone, and welcome back to True Crime with Mystery Maverick. While unsolved murders have a deep and profound impact on the victim's family and loved ones and leave many unanswered questions, the disappearance of a loved one leaves a feeling of limbo and no closure for those left behind. There is no crime scene, no clues, and no idea if the person is dead or alive. Today we look at one such disappearance as we head out to the open seas and climb aboard the Disney Wonder cruise ship as we delve into the mystery, the unforgotten disappearance of Rebecca Coriam. I was not familiar with this case until a viewer requested I cover it a few months ago, so I would like to thank my viewer Dakota Willman for the suggestion and for supporting my channel. Rebecca Coriam, affectionately known as Bex, was born on the 11th of March 1987 to parents Mike and Anne Coriam in Chester in northwest England. Rebecca had one older sister, Rachel, and two younger foster brothers who had not been named for legal reasons. Rebecca has been described as a very sporty, active and lively girl with an upbeat personality. In her earlier years, Rebecca attended Chester Catholic High School, and it is reported that she worked at Chester Zoo, said to have been somewhat of a family tradition for the Coriams. As a teenager, the young Bex would join the Army Cadets and continued her studies at the University of Plymouth, where she studied sports science. Having landed herself a volunteer position with the cadets participating in outdoor events, she took further studies in youth work at Hope University, renowned for its teacher training programs. Never one to miss an opportunity to travel and expand her horizons, Rebecca signed up for Camp America, where she would spend 4 months in New York and Maine working with kids in a summer camp. Rebecca had an amazing time at the camp and had developed a love for working with young people. Her experience, along with her love for children and her energetic and vibrant personality, would make her the perfect candidate when it came to her applying for a position as a children's entertainer for Disney cruise ships. Unsurprisingly, in June 2010, Rebecca landed herself a job interview with Disney Cruises and travelled to London to make her dream a reality. Rebecca was overjoyed when she was offered the position over thousands of applicants and given a 4-month contract, and her family were thrilled for her too. With excitement and enthusiasm, Rebecca's parents had dropped her off at Manchester Airport and waved their daughter off to what they thought would be the experience of a lifetime. Her mother would later say in an interview for the LA Times, "She was such a big, smiley kid. She just loved life, children, Disney and America." Her first 4 months would be spent training in Disney Florida theme parks and then on some cruise ship trips to the Bahamas. Like all workers, she would then return home for 2 months' leave to recharge her batteries and get ready for her next contract. When she returned to work, she was given a position on Disney Wonder cruise ship traveling from Florida and stopping at various ports along the Mexican Riviera through the Panama Canal. The Disney Wonder was the second ship to join the fleet of Disney cruise ships operated by Disney Cruise Lines and launched in 1998. It first set sail in August 1999. The ship boasts 11 decks of Art Nouveau decor, with intricate designs of the infamous Disney character Mickey Mouse disguised in its interiors. The website Disney Go headlines the ship as "a place where wonders never cease," and describes it as a place where families can reconnect, adults can recharge, and kids can immerse themselves in fantastical worlds only Disney could create. It was on her second stint that Rebecca had met another crew member, Tracy, who she took a liking to at a crew party. Tracy later described the meeting as being one of an instant attraction. Tracy later told the Sun newspaper, "I went to a party and Rebecca was there. We were flirting all night, and after that we were inseparable." Although Rebecca was already comfortable and outwardly expressive in her sexuality, Tracy was unsure of her own. In the same interview, Tracy said, "She walked me through a lot of feelings about my sexuality. When we took things to the next level, it felt right. We were madly in love." However, Rebecca's trip and her blossoming romance would be unexpectedly interrupted when she received the news that her grandfather, Kevin Coriam, had sadly passed away. Rebecca was given compassionate leave and returned home for 2 weeks for her grandfather's funeral. At the end of the 2 weeks, Rebecca would set off again and her parents would bid her farewell. Unbeknownst to them, this was the last time they would ever see their daughter in person again. Rebecca would keep in regular contact through Facebook and Skype, and the Coriams would later say that they had a close relationship with their daughter. Rebecca had planned a surprise trip for her and her parents to visit Disneyland Paris for when she was next on leave. On the 21st of March, as the ship set sail, heading to Puerto Vallarta, Rebecca contacted her mum on Facebook saying, "Hey mum, hope you're okay. I will call you tomorrow. Miss you. Kiss." However, that phone call would never come, and the Coriams would never hear from their daughter again. The following evening, on the 22nd of March 2011, they would receive a phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. In an interview on SBS Dateline, Mike Coriam remembers receiving the call just before 11 p.m, just before they were getting ready for bed, telling them their daughter was missing at sea. Mike begins to break down and struggles to speak as he remembers the devastating moment. His wife wraps her arm around his in support and continues, "I don't think it gets any easier. The longer it goes on, the harder it seems to get," said Anne. According to the Coriams, from that moment on was like a living nightmare, not just that they were given no information, but because her disappearance seemed to be shrouded in a veil of corporate secrecy. In an interview for BBC News, Rebecca's father, Mike, said that they were told in advance by cruise officials that they would be treated, quote, "Disney style." He stated that in hindsight, Disney style meant a tightly controlled visit to the ship before it set sail again. On March the 25th, 3 days after Rebecca's disappearance, as the ship returned to the port, the Coriams were flown to LA to seek answers about what had happened to their daughter. The Coriams would later recall their experience when they arrived. "We were met with a car with blacked out windows," Anne said. In an interview in the Guardian newspaper, the Coriams said that they were kept in the car until the passengers had disembarked from the ship and were unable to speak to the passengers or staff that were on board. They were then ushered through the back door of the ship, where they were shown grainy video footage of Rebecca looking distressed, making a phone call on the onboard telephone system at 5:45 a.m. on the 22nd of March. It was later revealed that Rebecca was crying, and a crew member, seeing her visibly upset, had asked if she was okay, to which she responded, "Yeah, fine," and the young man walked away. Rebecca was dressed in clothing that swamped her small frame and can be seen tucking her hair behind her ears and putting her hands inside her back pockets, something Mike said was somewhat of a habit of hers. In an interview for SBS Dateline, Anne remembers asking the captain what he thinks had happened to Rebecca, to which he responded that she made the phone call, then walked on to deck 5, tried to gather her thoughts, and sat on the side of the ship when a large wave had come and taken her over. However, Anne goes on to say that she didn't think it was possible, as when they were taken to deck 5, where it was claimed the incident had occurred, there was at least a 4-foot rail where there was a huge metal wall. She said that even if someone wanted to take their own life, she didn't think they would have done it from that particular part of the ship. The Coriams were taken to their daughter's cabin, where they found the tickets for the Paris trip and a note that read, "Ring Mum Friday morning, English time." They were allowed to take her belongings, which contained her suitcase and a pair of flip-flops that lay on top. They later expressed regrets that they didn't ask more questions when they had the chance, and did not know they would be rushed off the ship in time for it to set sail again. "We would have liked to ask more, but by the time we'd flown over, we were jet-lagged," Anne said. "We hadn't slept since the Tuesday. We flew out on the Friday. We hadn't eaten. With hindsight, it might have been better if we'd have gone out a little later," Mike said. "But your daughter's missing, so you don't think like that, do you? Also, we wanted to be quick to meet some of the passengers." Little did the Coriams know that at the time there were no protections out at sea, and that under maritime law jurisdiction lays in the country where the ship is registered. Due to tax reasons, this meant that the Disney Wonder was one of 80 other cruise ships under the jurisdiction of the small island country of the Bahamas. The Coriams felt like something was not right. They had expected to be greeted by American police or the FBI, but instead they were shocked when they learnt that just one investigator, Superintendent Paul Roll of the Bahamas Police Force, oversaw their daughter's case. Roll was flown out by Disney's private jet 3 days after Rebecca's disappearance, and it is reported that he spoke with no passengers and only a handful of the ship's crew. According to Disney, multiple searches were carried out on board the ship and in the ocean by the US Coast Guard and Mexican Navy. When the Coriams asked him if he would be returning to the boat, he stated he was finished with his investigation and would be returning to the Bahamas. On the 29th of March 2011, the Coriams would return home without Rebecca, without answers, and left more confused than ever about what had happened to their daughter. They issued a statement to Sky News that read, "We have just flown back from Los Angeles after our world crumbled. We are very tired, drained and emotional. We wish to be with our family and friends." As they returned home to Cheshire, Superintendent Paul Roll of the Royal Bahamas Police Force issued a statement saying officers had finished their investigations on board the vessel. However, he did go on to say, "At the present time there is no evidence to suggest foul play. The case remains open and under active investigation." In May 2011, just 2 months after their daughter's disappearance, her family found a glimmer of hope when it was reported that Rebecca's credit card had been used. In an interview for the Mirror Online, Mike said, "This could be a very significant development. That her credit card's been used can only mean someone stole it or she's still alive. We've never believed she simply disappeared overboard and drowned. I have always felt she is still alive. We are just keeping our fingers crossed and she is out there somewhere." Despite their hope and optimism, and not for the want of trying, the Coriams were unable to get the card company to provide the details of its use. and it would not materialize into finding Rebecca. When asked how do you stay so strong on an interview on CNN, Rebecca's mum Anne said, "We've got our family. Obviously all our family are helping. They've been marvellous, and we've really focused on trying to help the next people that may go through what we're going through. We don't want that to happen again, do we? It's awful, it's absolutely awful. We've got each other, we try to keep strong, don't we, and focus, but we desperately miss Rebecca, but we're doing it for her. We'll keep up, we'll keep thinking of her, don't we? And we've got to find out what's happened to her. You know, you just don't vanish off a ship, you know, with all those people. Somebody out there must know something. You know, we'll keep on and we'll keep strong for her until we find answers, really." Following their daughter's disappearance, the Coriams set up a fundraising campaign on Facebook and a website to find those answers. They further have been campaigning for the UK authorities to investigate cases involving British nationals who go missing on vessels abroad. MP Stephen Mosley addressed the government in the House of Commons and asked them to review Rebecca's case and for an inquiry and new investigation to be carried out. The Coriam's local MP Chris Matheson later said to the Daily Mail Online, "It's about time the government started standing up for British citizens abroad." On the 23rd of October 2011, 7 months to the day of Rebecca's disappearance, investigative reporter for The Guardian John Ronson, with the blessing of Rebecca's parents, booked a trip on the Disney Wonder to see what he could uncover. Once on board, Ronson spoke with several employees regarding Rebecca's disappearance. According to Ronson, many were apprehensive to talk about it. He reported that one employee said, "I don't know anything about it, it didn't happen, you know, that's the answer I have to give." While others confirmed the official explanation offered by Disney that Rebecca had gone from Deck 5. While on Deck 4, Ronson had reasoned that Rebecca must have fallen from a running track despite CCTV cameras covering all angles. However, when he mentioned this to a painter varnishing the rails, the man responded, "No, she went from Deck 5. He then directed Ronson to look down from Deck 10 to view the crew pool. "That's where she went from, the starboard side," he said. When asked how he knew, the man replied, "I was on the ship that day, everyone knows. They found her slipper," he continued. After looking down at Deck 5, Ronson concluded it would have been impossible, as behind the railing is a high steel wall that extended above head height. However, some were skeptical about Disney's explanation. One crew member told Ronson, "Disney knows exactly what happened. That phone call she had, it was taped. Everything is taped. There's CCTV everywhere. Disney have that tape." Some crew members who knew Rebecca spoke of Rebecca's personality and the events surrounding her disappearance. Ronson asked one of her friends about the tape and if he knew what was on it. "Not exactly. I know she was having a fight with her partner." He further stated, "What's it ever about? Love, relationships? There's no mystery. She was a lovely girl with an underlying sadness." Others disagreed, with one saying the exact opposite. "She was a lovely girl, not emotional, just like everyone here, nice and friendly and happy." Ronson later asked the Coriams, "Was there any underlying sadness?" No, Mike says, "there isn't." Another crew member suggested that maybe it wasn't a suicide and that Rebecca may have gone to clear her head and fallen. A theory that was further reiterated by one of Rebecca's close friends who Ronson had spoken to on his return to England. She said of her friend, "She was the most amazing little burst of energy. You were completely drawn to her. She loved life, bouncing around all the time. She was one of my best friends, but it could get a bit much. You come in from a heavy night and she'd be zapping around everywhere, playing tricks on you. She's very mischievous. She further went on to say that someone had told her that Rebecca had a fight with her partner and admits there were problems in the relationship due to its intensity and the passionate and fiery personalities of them both. When Ronson asked her if that's what she thought the call was about, she responded, "I can't think of any other reason why she'd have been upset and wandering around by herself at 6 a.m. From what I've heard, she was on the phone to a mutual friend, not the girl she's been having the relationship with." Ronson further asked her about her thoughts on what had happened to Rebecca and the explanation that she had jumped from deck 5, leaving her flip-flops behind. "Those weren't her flip-flops. Mike and Anne showed them to me. They were too big. They weren't her style. They were pink and flowery and Hawaiian. I'd never seen her wear them. Why didn't Disney come to me or her girlfriend and say, 'Can you identify these as Bex's?' Instead, they put them in her room for when her parents got on board. Who does that?" She went on to say, "Disney swear they've told us everything they know, which is that they don't know anything, but most of us think bullshit. Someone must know something, someone's covering something up." She said that Rebecca was a risk taker and that she believed that Rebecca did not intentionally want to harm herself, but that she may have climbed on the ledge of the wall to clear her head and as a result fallen into the sea. She did, however, say that she believed that Disney knew what had happened to her friend. "Security on the ship is ultra tight. You can't get on or off without your ID card. Down by the crew pool there's HR offices, the crew gym and the crew office that deals with passports, money and documentation. And they're saying there's no CCTV cameras." When Ronson asked why Disney would withhold the information, she responded, "To try to protect the brand. If it was 6 a.m. and they were doing their job and watching the front, someone must have seen her go over. Or if they didn't, they're covering up why they didn't." She further added, "Bex made hundreds of people happy. The passengers loved her. They all loved her. You'd think Disney would give something back. They owe it to her to find out what happened." In an interview on SBS Dateline, maritime lawyer Jim Walker said, "The Disney people want everyone to believe that a youth counsellor can disappear, and they want you to believe, well, that was just the location on the ship that didn't have a closed-circuit television camera. It's preposterous." Ronson contacted Disney for comment, and a spokesperson for the brand said, "If you talk to crew members, you'll know Rebecca's disappearance has been difficult and heartbreaking for everyone." When he asked if the call was taped, they said, "That pertains to specific details about the investigation, and so it's not appropriate for us to share that kind of information." They ended the call with a generic statement, "I can tell you, we wish we knew what had happened as much as anyone." A year after Rebecca's disappearance, the Coriams received an email from a woman claiming she had seen Rebecca on the streets of Venice with a dark-haired man. However, the woman claimed she was only 85% sure it was Rebecca, and no further information has come to light that would corroborate her sighting. In their continued quest for answers, 3 years after Rebecca's disappearance, the Coriams filed a lawsuit against Disney, citing they had failed in their duty of care. In the leaked documents, the family claimed they waited more than 4 hours to alert the Coast Guard, giving them incorrect coordinates, and over 5 hours to contact the Mexican Navy, and more than 7 hours to contact the Bahamian authorities. Disney made a statement in response to the lawsuit, telling the BBC, "The incident has been investigated by authorities. The claims are without merit, as we will demonstrate in court." A settlement of an undisclosed amount was later agreed with Disney in 2015, which prevented the Coriam family from publicly speaking about her case. 6 years after her disappearance, Rebecca's alleged lover Tracy Medley, who also worked on the cruise ship, made some shocking revelations about Rebecca to the Sun newspaper. Tracy told the tabloid, "I have nothing to hide. My silence was never an admission of guilt. My silence was to protect the image of a friend." She further went on to say, "I've spent 6 years reading bullshit claims from Rebecca's family that she was a fun-loving, never sad athlete with no issues and a love for life. Her disappearance to them could not possibly be due to suicide. Someone needed to be blamed for this. Unfortunately, they saw that opportunity with me." Rebecca felt like a misfit. She felt like her family was ashamed that she was a lesbian. She once mentioned how her sister was embarrassed of the new friends she started to hang out with. Tracy further claimed that Rebecca was not the happy-go-lucky person that she had been painted out to be. According to Tracy, she had emotional trauma that had stemmed from being raped as a teen and that she had a cocaine problem as a result. Tracy claimed she found out that Rebecca was doing cocaine when she had searched through her mobile phone. "I remember going through her phone and seeing a text where she was asking someone if they had more cocaine because she needed some. I asked her why she used coke in England and she got very upset, saying I'd invaded her privacy and I was a psycho for going through her phone." Tracy described the relationship as wild, fun and passionately intense, but admits Rebecca was frustrated by her lack of serious commitment. By all accounts, the relationship was rocky and fraught with arguments, since Rebecca was not the only person that Tracy was involved with. Reports suggest that when the pair had first met, that Tracy was dating a male bartender named Devon Hyde, who had been on shore leave at the time. Upon his return, and while Rebecca had left the ship to mourn the loss of her beloved grandfather, Tracy would rekindle her romance with Devon. In the book, Rebecca Coriam, True Crime Mysteries Missing, states that on the 17th of March, just days before her disappearance, Rebecca had caught Tracy and Devon sneaking away from a crew party for sex. Rebecca was obviously distraught and accused Tracy of using her to experiment with her sexuality. In an interview for the Mirror Online, Tracy says, "She knew I went to his room. She said she was in love with me and she thought I wasn't in love with her, that I was toying around. She said she wanted to leave the ship." Tracy stated to The Sun, "The night before she went missing, I remember her being upset with me again." In the days leading up to her disappearance, Tracy said that Rebecca started drinking, threatening to commit suicide and banging her head against the ship walls, and was so upset that her and 4 other staff members ended up carrying her to Tracy's room to calm her down. "This same night, Rebecca woke me up and said something along the lines of feeling like a failure because she wasn't brave enough to jump off the ship," recalled Tracy. She further went on to say of the incident, "I told her that was ridiculous and it showed she had something to live for, and this is why she couldn't go through with it." However, this claim does not seem to fit with eyewitness accounts of Rebecca the night before she disappeared. According to the local newspaper Cheshire Live, some of the staff had seen Bex at the staff bar around 2 a.m. on the morning she disappeared, quote, "having a couple of beers and coming across as happy-go-lucky." Tracy further claims that on this evening that her and Devon and Rebecca all attended a crew party and ended up in Devon's room together. In an interview in The Sun, Tracy said that Rebecca had initiated a threesome. In an interview for The Mirror, she further described the rendezvous. "She just went up to him and started kissing him. We all basically had sex with each other. At one point they went into the bathroom. To me it was the best case scenario. Then he came out and came over to me and we started fooling around. She came out of the bathroom. I feel like that was when it had all hit her. The way she looked at us, it was like it was fun when it was her and him and me and her, but for her to see him and me together, I think she was just like, what am I doing here? Tracy said that after Rebecca had taken a shower, she had asked her to go for a walk. However, she was tired and hungover and told Rebecca it was late and she wasn't going out. Tracy estimates it was around 5:40 a.m, 5 minutes before Rebecca was seen on camera for the last time looking upset and distressed. Rebecca's parents were contacted by the Sun and refused to comment on Tracy's accusations. However, in an article in the Liverpool Echo, maritime expert Bill Anderson, helping the family get answers about the 24-year-old's fate, told the Echo, everything has been covered up. The Echo further reported that a friend of Rebecca's had visited the Coriams, suggesting that Rebecca was fearful of being sexually assaulted. Bill Anderson said of the revelation, what her best friend said to the Coriams sent a shiver down their spines. They told Mike and Anne and then they told the police. Rebecca was a happy-go-lucky person with plenty to live for. The only thing that was upsetting her was pressure being placed on her to have sex with somebody she didn't want to. But the investigation by one sole detective from the Bahamas and the carefree way they let suspects out of their grasp beggars belief. In an article on the 24th of June 2017 in the Irish Mirror by Luke Traynor, Tracy's story is seemingly confirmed in leaked police notes from Superintendent Paul Rolls, the Bahamas officer assigned to Rebecca's case. According to the documents, there are some differences and omissions between the police notes and the account given by Tracy to the Sun newspaper. She doesn't tell the Sun she had left the room twice during that evening to get beer. She does not mention Rebecca instigating the encounter to the police, and the sequence of the events, such as the interactions, are different between the police report and her later interview. The documents further state that when questioned that Devon was, quote, nonchalant and was laughing and joking, and was even given a warning about his behaviour. The article goes on to say that although the Cheshire Police did liaise with the Bahamian authorities, they had no jurisdiction to proceed with their own investigation. They did, however, receive an interim report which was, quote, totally and utterly unsatisfactory. They were further instructed not to disclose its contents to the family. The Coriam state they tried to get access to the report under the Freedom of Information Act with no success. The Coriams further enlisted the help of a private investigator along with ex-Special Operations Commander for Scotland Yard Roy Ram in the quest for the truth. Ram compiled a detailed report in Rebecca's case and reviewed the investigation carried out by Roll. He said of his findings, I was aghast by the appalling quality of the investigation. I thought it was awful. There were so many things that didn't look right. To me, it was more about keeping the ship on schedule than finding the truth about Rebecca. He further pointed out the lack of appropriate procedures needed for an investigation. He said none of the interviews with the suspects were recorded, and the fact there was no forensic investigation carried out on Deck 5 where Rebecca was said to have disappeared from. He went on to say that he believed that Rebecca was a victim of sexual assault, and he had noticed that Rebecca's shorts she was wearing were ripped, indicating as such. He stated that he believed following the assault that Rebecca had either been thrown overboard or so distressed she had taken her own life. According to a newspaper article in The Guardian on the 11th of November 2011, Rebecca's is the first disappearance on the Disney Wonder. However, hundreds of people go missing each year on cruise ships, with Carnival Cruises having a record 43 disappearances from 2000 to 2011 and 171 disappearances across all cruise ship liners, within that decade and 12 in the year of 2011 alone, according to a source from the same article. And the father of Marion Carver, who also disappears on a cruise ship in 2004, almost every 2 weeks someone goes overboard. Many feel that this is just the tip of the iceberg, with many cases going unreported, many of them rapes, and those that were reported not being dealt with in a timely or sufficient manner. In an article for the Cruise Law News, it discusses a hearing held by Senator John Ray Rockefeller regarding Cruise Passenger Protection Act 1340, improving consumer protections for cruise passengers. The hearing cites a number of failures by the cruise ship industry to protect its customers. Rockefeller described testimony heard from victims of crimes detailing their stories of crimes, fires, drownings and medical emergencies, all mishandled by the cruise liners, including a rape where crucial evidence was not preserved. Unfortunately, the open seas are akin to the Wild West in that they are a lawless land shrouded in outdated, centuries-old maritime laws that many would suggest are not fit for purpose. In a disturbing statement, Jim Walker said, "The place to get away with a crime is on a cruise ship. The place to be a sexual predator and prey on children is on a cruise ship. If you're a rapist, you're more likely to get away with committing a crime on a cruise ship on the high seas. All of this is happening out on international waters typically. There are no policemen on the scene. You can't call 911, you can't summon a police officer who will run out onto the crime scene, so they're out there by themselves." Despite the Coriam's efforts, they still have very few answers about what happened to their daughter, and the lack of information has led to much speculation surrounding her disappearance. Many have suggested that Disney covered up her disappearance to protect their reputation. Do they know more information as theorized by some of Rebecca's friends? Maybe the cover-up was related to a safety issue that they could have been liable for. The luxury cruise liner business is highly lucrative, with a record turnover of $3.36 billion in 2020, which is estimated to rise to an astronomical $35 billion by 2026. Therefore, there may have been billions of reasons why Disney would not want to take accountability for what happened to Rebecca, not only protect the brand's image but also to protect their substantial profits. Others have suggested there were more sinister circumstances surrounding her disappearance, that maybe she was pushed after having been subjected to a sexual assault. While this is a possibility, I think that Disney would have released the tapes of this occurring, as it would have been a chance to absolve themselves of any blame. Furthermore, we do not know for certain that a sexual assault even happened. Rebecca was said to have been madly in love with Tracy. Had she engaged in the threesome to please her, or out of fear she may lose her and then greatly regretted it afterwards? Moreover, there are conflicting accounts of Rebecca's state of mind. Although her parents and some friends say that she was not depressed or suicidal, she was clearly very distressed in the video footage she was last seen in. In addition, it is difficult to judge a person's state of mind when it comes to suicide. Extroverted people can be suffering in silence before taking their own lives, which often comes as a shock to their family and friends. Was Rebecca swept overboard from deck 5 by a rogue wave? I think this is highly unlikely. Not only are there no reports of adverse weather that day, but the wave would have needed to be over 90 foot high to reach that deck, and would have been noticed by others on the ship. Lastly, others have theorized that Rebecca was a victim of sex trafficking. Although this is not unheard of on cruise ships, and there are other cases that are believed to be connected to this type of crime, this is usually carried out by some kind of criminal enterprise, and there have been no other reports of women going missing from Disney cruise ships since her disappearance. I believe that Rebecca was distressed after engaging in the threesome with Tracy, and/or realised after seeing Tracy and Devon in bed together that she had made a huge mistake. I believe, like some of her friends, that she had gone to clear her head and accidentally fallen overboard. None had realised she was missing until some hours later, and the ship had not gone back to search for her, meaning there was little chance of finding her. Whatever happened to Rebecca we may never truly know, but maybe her disappearance and legacy will be to improve safety measures on cruise ships for others, and to improve the laws and protections for staff and passengers alike. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the disappearance of Rebecca Coriam and what you think may have happened to her that morning. Was it an accident, suicide, or something more sinister? I hope you join me next time for more true crime mysteries of the Unforgotten.